Are we live? Yes, we are. Hello everyone, welcome back. We are finally live again. Today we're going to talk about 6 insane award sites that should be illegal because they're just way too good for the world of the internet. This is so insane because it's finally happening, this stream, and I've been trying to get this on for about an hour and it hasn't happened. So, with that said, let's get started. Today we're going to talk about 6 awesome sites that I don't even think are very, very present. People don't know about them, and they're award sites, so they're incredibly awesome. You and I will see things that we didn't think were possible. And with that said, let's just get started. Today's site number 1 is exactly the site you saw on the thumbnail. This is non-linear studio. Can't even speak anymore. Non-linear studio, and many of the elements are exactly what they are, very, very non-linear. Now, the major concern that happens as soon as you start with a site like this is there is 3D, there is rotating elements, there is text that is rotating the way it shouldn't be rotating. We've all, if you've worked with languages that aren't English on the web, we've all seen languages that go RTL, right to left, something like Arabic. But sometimes when you have text all switched up in weird directions, makes your head go in 3 different loops. So again, as soon as you get started, very, very weird landing page. The first thing that ever shocked me about is, how did anyone get this idea? How do you even think about this idea? How do you get it to work? Because switching things around it's just a little bit twisted, because it just is. Let's just talk about the elements that are present on this very, very first landing page. As soon as you get started, you get the most standard header logo that you could ever have, but then this is where the important part comes in. You've got 3D models that are kind of non-linear, like their name. They're rotating around. No, this isn't plain text or fonts in web never go 3D unless you're applying some mega shaders or mega filters. So I do think this is either a very, very heavy drop shadow, but the way it's spinning around makes it look 3D. So as soon as you get started, you're hit with something that's just 3D. The name is non-linear and it just messes with your ability to comprehend things. And now you have all of this text inside of this very, very limited area that's kind of rotating around. It's not simple, it's not linear, and it's just right there. So think of it what you will. With that said, there is a description, there is the name of the brand as well, because of course it has to be established. Your most basic details that you could possibly have on a site like this are present. I think the weird thing that freaks me out a little bit is the fact that you don't have your call to action as the major thing that is available alongside your name, because I can understand wanting to put years that just go really, really far back onto a place like the web, but established 2020 isn't even that far ahead. I'm pretty sure most of us can remember the time when 2020 was around. So this is a little bit of a mismatch, and it just freaks me out a little bit. With that said, the color scheme is spot on, and they've kind of started with something good, and they've maintained it this far, because when you have a color scheme that is very, very random, even if you're generating from a color palette, you have this really, really blue that's just bright and it's taking up its space, and then you have black and different shades of gray and white. It's difficult to be able to integrate that anywhere outside of the logo, which they've managed to do inside of these bars. It's very, very subtle. People don't know it's technically the color scheme, but if you directly are able to put it inside this place, then it's just exactly what you think it is. With that said, as soon as you scroll over, you see a background video, and again, much of what happens in this site has been generated in 3D, has been generated previously. A lot of processing involved, and it's just, sometimes you take a site and you overpower it with so much 3D and so much over processing that it becomes uncomfortable for anyone to watch, which is kind of similar to what's happening. But the thing that I do acknowledge here is, this is an element that they made well, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. When you make something that looks nice, when you make something that looks consistent, you want to repeat it over and over again, because most stuff that happens because of consistency, and when you're innovating something new, consistency is always missing. So you want to get into the head of the user and you want to let there be consistency. We exist to make great work with great people. Again, I love the fact that they've highlighted truly what they mean to say, because when you don't have a specific highlight on a certain word, it can get many different interpretations and you don't know what to focus on, especially if you're just coming to it in the first place. select projects are a collection of the projects that they have worked with that they're really proud of, and it's a little bit different, because up until now you were expecting this same layout to work horizontally, to work vertically, and then as soon as you start to scroll horizontally, it starts to sort of go in its own direction vertically. So it kind of does its own thing. You don't have to do much to control it. And then you also have this element that's just always there in the footer behind where the camera is at, this one. And then you have this extremely weird, almost modern art lookish section that just talks about the about details, the color palettes, and I think the only reason it's very striking is because they've basically tried to be very modern art with this. But what they've done is they've went into their Figma or wherever they design their sites, they've taken the branding mood board, it's directly kind of a color scheme integrated into the whole thing, and they've just put it exactly where they'd need to put it, and I think that's just really cool. And then you have your form in the background, which is a simple form, nothing very complicated, but it continues to match the weird, boxy, edgy vibe that you have for all of these sections. I'm a human. CAPTCHA. And again, I love the fact that they've overridden the standard CAPTCHA that we all see. I am interested in seeing if they do the weird, can you identify how many of these are cars? I don't think they do. They've made a custom CAPTCHA, which is nice, but also it's a little bit scary. But also that's the thing with trust. You don't know whether the user is a human, and then by the time you start finding out whether the user is a human, the test is so damn complicated, you need a robot to solve it. It's very paradoxical. And then the footer does take all of the standard things that you would want from a nice looking site. I do see a Mickey Mouse's hand over here, but the main issue with this weird hand is it's behind the camera. You know what, I should just change my position of my camera, because I hope it changed. Wow, I cannot figure my own streaming setup out. This is weird. Alright, we've gone on to the left side. I see the hand of Mickey Mouse, and the issue with this hand is it has 4 fingers. It kind of looks like Mickey Mouse, but it's a little bit of a disfigured Mickey Mouse, which is the thing that's driving me insane in the head. And then you also have a bunch of links that are just rotating and circulating exactly as they would need to. They've hijacked the custom scroll bar. It scrolls on its own, but the colors and thickness are different, which is exactly what you would expect from a site that's trying to go non-linear, that's trying to override every single basic element that you would possibly think exists. Overall, this is a funny site, because much of the things that it thinks about, I wouldn't be thinking about in the first place because of how twisted it is. Overall, I'm going to rate this a 7 out of 10, because why would I not? This is a nice site. You should check it out, and let me know what you guys think, because it's a site that does try really hard, and it works really by putting all of its brain into the first thing it sees, and yet it doesn't really click, and it doesn't really match the other behavior of the continuous site. So I do think this is one of those sites where I'm like 7 out of 10, but should it marks for the effort. So the next site that we're talking about is a freespeech.gubrica.com. I would want to point out I have never seen what this site does in real life, which is probably what's freaking me out about this. Let's just hold to start. Alright, this you have to kind of keep on holding the thing until something that they want happens, which doesn't really match with, and you can hold to drag and remove keys. This is very 3D again, but it's not 3D in terms of being able to touch it and feel it. And then at the end of the day, you also have many different elements that are 3D, so you can kind of work with the fabric, but it's not physically very movable. You can enter, and I'm still not sure what this site is. It has something to do with free speech, which is something we can tell. Kushal says, hi, new here. Hello, welcome to the channel. We talk about UI UX design and insanely awesome sites that are just exceptions on the web, and that do teach us a thing or two about modern UI UX design. With that said, they've taken the standard physics-based old-timey fabric render that came in. It was really a trend back in the old days, and then they've just put 3D on top of it. It's like sticking two things together that just don't belong together, but it's freaky, and it looks fun, and it just works well together. So I have to give them that. With that said, there's also a bunch of text, and it takes the amount of space it needs to. There's white space, which I appreciate. White space is negative space, and you have all of this area where you can place nothing but absolute silence, and then you also have a little bit of text exactly where it needs to go, which is nice as well. this is now freaking me out because I have no idea what I'm clicking on and why what's happening is happening. They're talking about different chapters, it seems, for hate speech and freedom of speech and disinformation. How do you click on any of these? Now again you have a bunch of 3D renders inside of videos, inside of a website, which is just what makes the whole experience a little bit jarring, but also the fact that it scrolls very, very smoothly is what works really, really well. And then you can kind of scroll around and see all sorts of text go on as wherever it needs to go on. And again, this is super duper fun because you actually get to see the fabric and experience what's actually going on in real time on the screen. With that said, there's a bunch of really, really cool stuff happening, but very, very quickly does it get repetitive, which is exactly why I think they did try to do a bunch of really, really fancy things over here, and it got out of hand super quickly to a point where now it's just very, very dry and it's just in your face, and it's difficult to work with, which is why I think I'm going to rate this like a 3 out of 10, which is very, very low considering most of the ratings that I give, because you can go ahead and keep on looking at the site from all the angles you want, and yet it's just going to show you the same exact patterns over and over again, same exact patterns that are weird, unnatural, and definitely throw you off a little bit. With that said, we're going to the third site today, which is weareuprising.com, because why would we not? This third site is again using fabrics, and why is it happening that every single element, every single site that we see that's very, very unnatural, that's just come in and it's sort of very, very new to the web, has a lot of fabric and 3D go on, like it's going to be the repetitive theme, even though this is like just the starting of the video. It's just seeming to be a repetitive theme of these sites over and over again, and this is exactly what makes them super duper common. And then you have text, which you obviously needed to place on the site. The font isn't very, very fancy, although I would have wanted to see with a very, very plain black vibe a font that actually does get fancy, a font that actually does do the kind of things that it needs to do. You have a background, you have a video playing, you have fabric, and then you have text, you have colors that are working exactly as they need to work. And then you have this weird guy who just comes in whenever he wants to. You have a bunch of 3D renders, all of which are as videos of fabric in the background. And again, to imagine it, to make it happen, all of these are a little bit more complicated than what you get when you have a very, very static, plain looking site. Kaushal Thakur says, yeah, the keyboard site seems too overwhelming, it's all in your face. That's absolutely the truth, because when you're just bombarded with too much stuff that wasn't supposed to be there, and you know in your heart it wasn't supposed to be there, it becomes extremely funny. So this is exactly what I think happened with the keyboard site, which is exactly why I'm laughing when I'm looking at it. Like internally, there is a little bit of a what happened, why it happened, but it's just very, very freaky, and it's not normal, and you can immediately tell it's not normal. And that's the issue with 3D sites. That's the issue with sites with fabric. They try to behave in a way that isn't basically the 3D medium. So they're trying to take the web, these screens that are basically 2D, they're trying to put 3D on top of it, and it's so easy to make it weird, and it's so easy to mess it up, and it's so easy to make it really, really hard to believe. We still have videos in the background, and all of this is 3D, put into video, put into fabric, coming up over and over again, and it's a bunch of digital products doing something that they want to. The issue that I have is I've still not been able to understand what they actually do, simply because you need to hover over, you need to be able to just see something and know what it does, and yet the blue that they're using with the background color has no contrast. Like this is exactly the stuff that makes colorblind people angry at web designers, and this is exactly the stuff that doesn't take into consideration the entire level of accessibility of everyone and the way things are happening. So with that said, this is a very, very simple site that keeps on rotating. It's extremely weird to look at because you kind of know internally what's going on, and it doesn't really change. We can go to the about page, but I have a feeling this is exactly what the about page is. No, the about page is another version of this same site, which is kind of weird because it just does what you saw happen in horizontal, in vertical now. So they're just basically employing the exact same techniques, and they're just kind of keeping on scrolling things, and it's just really, really freaky. Kushal asks, do you think these sites are more of a tech demo instead of having some kind of meaning to it? It's entirely possible. They're trying to impress designers, because normal users would have a really hard time getting impressed by sites like these, because it's so weird, so unnatural, and you just don't know what you're going to click on, what you're going to stumble upon next. You need someone who's just been on the internet for a really long period of time, or just been really observant for a really long period of time. And when that doesn't happen for most users, that site is just going down in terms of accessibility, and it's going down in terms of keeping every person together under one single brand and under one single roof. So I think that's where most of these sites struggle with. But the people who make these sites think these sites are really cool, which is exactly why they just want to put it in your face and impress you. So it's psychology. It's not the classiest thing in the world, and it's not the most easiest thing in the world. The next site that we're talking about is pohoda.outloud. So work.outloud.co/pohoda, which I'm sincerely hoping is a different language, because if it isn't, then I'm freaked out by my low knowledge of English. It's probably another language. I'm still convincing myself it is. Kushal asks, can you switch to the mobile version? I'm curious to see how it looks on mobile. That's actually very interesting. I have to go back because this site is extremely weird, and it does become a concern. Wow, they just decided to take every nice thing they had and they tried to compress it, and it sort of looks childish now, because you're trying to load the video and your color contrast was just never present. Like, there's just nothing. This blue is so dark, I can see it because I have normal eyes, but so many people on the web, and especially when you put it through tests like WCAG Accessibility or Google Lighthouse, you're going to find out how bad the site is. I don't think the video is actually going to load, because mobiles sometimes in these simulations have a lower internet capacity. And for the smaller devices, the smaller you go, especially when you start to go 3G, and especially when you start to go 320 by 240 pixel cell phone sizes, I think that's still a standard. Like, you have to let it go there for accessibility. And the reason this site is a major fail in my mind, which I just forgot to rate, like, I think I have to give this site like a 0 out of 10, because I don't want to be cruel, but at the same time, it just does not go to any form of accessibility at all. You don't have your color scheme working right, you don't have your mobile screen size ever loading a video. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't work for the small cell phones, because 3G and a bunch of issues that come with loading this much data on the main thread, and at the end of the day, you just end up looking at it and this is very childish. So overall, it's a nice effort, it's a cool site, but it's not that quick, it's not that on its feet agile enough for it to be able to catch up. With that said, we're back to Out Loud, the next site that we're talking about. Now you have a phone that's also in 3D. So as I said in this video, even though I've not seen the sites, I am sensing a theme here. It's just going to be 3D and fabric based weird physics going on all around, and I think this site, because I saw the first motion in front of you guys, does get to a place where you're really comfortable with the motion. It does start to work just a little bit, and yet it's kind of finicky, and it's kind of on its head and it's on its tail, if you know what I mean. Speaking of, no matter how nice the place may be, and I'm freaking out. So that was a nice detail. And then you have a 3D. If I run off, believe me, a major reptile is roaming in this room. I don't want it there. I don't know what to do to get rid of it. If I run out, you know why. With that said, you have a 3D phone which is just sitting there, and you have a bunch of text which is very normal, Arial looking. The reason I'm a little bit freaked out with it is because you have a bunch of really nice colors on your screen, and you have a bunch of 3D effects go on, but at the same time your fonts are just so normal, so commonplace, so MS Word, that it does throw into question the realism of the site. Why would you create something that's this pretty and then just take the whole fonts away? Again, the good thing that they do with it is, and this is where finally my hopes start to rise again, the good thing that they do with it is, as soon as the screen starts to get boring, they switch around the background color, which is a common strategy people don't know about, and they try to give you one sentence at a time, very slow, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed with a bunch of text, and then you kind of keep on. Ashir Mana says reptile. It's a reptile. Please don't make me say what reptile it is. Although you guys want, I might talk about it. It's a reptile, you guys, and I'm genuinely scared, because it could get on top of the setup that's making this live stream possible. It could do that, and when it does, I will be running out of this room screaming, and you will know exactly why. Don't unsubscribe, because all of you would freak out at the major reptile that there is. It's actually quite huge. I'm not even kidding right now. It's actually quite huge, and I'm freaking out. I don't. Kushal says, can you also switch to mobile on Foda side, because major audience would be on mobile. Absolutely true. I think the fact that's weird on this site is you have an image in front of your face with you have an image that's in front of your face, and it's very, very large. This is not a mobile image. This is using a bunch of mobile wireframes, and it's putting it into one. Kushal says, I hope the reptile is not a snake. It's actually worse than snake, because it has 4 legs and a tail, and it's gigantic for the size that it's supposed to be. I'll keep you guys guessing, because it's so simple and it's so stupid, and we've tried everything to get rid of it, and yet the reptile laid eggs, and now there are babies in the house, and everyone's freaking out. So I think that's just the way things are going to be for a little while. With that said, this is a bunch of images that keep on popping up in their own speed, which is what makes me curious to stick around to find what happens with the mobile version, because this is like it's extremely hard to do with mobile, and it's obviously visible in front of your face. I'm not naming the reptile yet. Speaking of reptiles, the background color switches once again because things get boring, and the background color is a lighter version of the skin of the reptile, which is freaking me out as I try to be really, really happy. This is so weird. I don't talk about reptiles on stream, but now I have to. Another 3D render. I do think the quality of these 3D renders isn't the quality that you see up to standards, because check it out, it really, really does get very blurry, and that's not the case with text. So text is really, really smooth, but as soon as you zoom in, it kind of looks weird. Is it a skink? I don't know what a skink is. It's not a skink because it's not a skunk. No, skunks aren't reptiles, and skunks are wild animals, which if they came in here, I would be running out at full speed. No, it's much smaller, but it has given me nightmares. So it's up to you to figure it out. And then you have this really, really weird looking 3D model, and this was also what was kind of freaking me out for the first 3D model. You have 2 different 3D models, both very pixelated, both very old looking. Font typography is not there. Like, this is where elements start to go missing, and everyone's just like, what happened? And then you start to get a little bit of a sense that there actually might be some life. There's text, there's a bunch of these really, really cool tooltips, and there's a bunch of there's another 3D render right here, and I am smiling because I know the reptile is close. This is so bad, because there is a reptile on the stream. I was just hoping it wasn't present. Kushal says, I searched for snake with legs. Guess again. I think the thing I'm talking about is a reptile. I'm just hoping it is. It's present as an emoji. Like, you should be able to figure it out now. I don't live with Komodo dragons. No, that would be weird. Oh my god, the reptile is here. It's a lizard. The reptile is in front of my face, and it's a lizard, and I'm so close to running away. Devil Ash says, what do you think about the future of websites? I think the future of websites is really, really complicated now, because you just have open access to so many different trends going on. Today's trends, the trends that we're covering in this specific episode, are getting very, very newly introduced, and they're either unformed or it's and this is why we call this stream illegal, because it's either unformed or it just pisses you off in a way where you think this is not perfect, this is not well formed, and you're kind of projecting your own imperfectness on the site. You don't have good typography here. Like at the end of the day, web is going to move forward because you have so many cool technologies coming in, so many cool ways of doing the same exact things we did in 2012 coming in. But the reason we've picked this stream and these sites today is because they're a little bit not very well formed, not well adjusted enough to be legal yet, and this is the stream where you'll see the common flaws alongside the world of the magical sites which we just don't get to use. The reptile is moving around inside of this little studio, and I am so mad that there's a reptile in the room. I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. With that said, the site does get boring really, really quickly because you have the same exact backgrounds, and the scrolling speed has changed a little bit. But what they did right here was an exact copy of what Apple does when they launch a new iPhone. When they launch a new iPhone, there's usually a frame of the device, and actually as you start to scroll, the video kinds of zooms in your face. This is an exact copy of Apple, and I'm not trying to be condescending over here, but it does make you think the exact same thing that Apple did happens over here, but they've just changed the content, which does make you think it's a little bit more simple. Again, the reason I think the integration of the Apple effect was a little bit childish is because as soon as you integrate the effect, as soon as you copy it, as soon as you make that happen, which is actually very easily doable by open source these days, you immediately enter a page where you have a bunch of different wireframes, prototypes of your app, which I don't have a problem with, but the fact that you don't have padding over here does tell me things about you. The fact that you don't have any padding right or left and you're not considering it even, like the only thing that's present is this weird grid gap, which isn't enough because you need to have a little bit of padding at least on the right and left, even if the things are vertical scrolling, right? So when you don't have that, you see there's a lack of finesse because most of these frames are very, very zoomable, and that some of these frames are actually quite smooth though, because this looks much smoother, and the first frame that was actually doing its stunts and stuff was very, very blurry because there's an inconsistency there, and that's why it belongs in the illegal pile. Kushal Thakur says, let's extend this question in emerging agentic world of AIs and things happening in the background. I think it's going to change but not entirely replaced. What do you think? It's going to change. It's absolutely going to change, and I think I saw a weird tweet about this, but it's actually very, very true. People are afraid of AI taking over their jobs, especially in the very, very first segment of web design, web development. Thing is, AI isn't going to take your job. The people who use AI as a companion will. So it's kind of like that. It's kind of hard to understand. And as soon as you start to use it, you start to realize why everyone loves this so much, and then everyone hates it so much on the other side of the team, where they think their job is in danger, where they think they are in danger. But the truth is, no one's going anywhere. It's just things are shifting a little bit, and shift and change is often freaky and scary to people, which is exactly what's happening nowadays. If you learn AI, if you learn to integrate it best in your workspace, I don't think you have anything to be scared about, because there is a cool bunch of people who are just sitting there scared in the corner, not learning a single thing about AI just because they hate it so much. And those are the people who are truly ignorant, and those are the people who are actually going to see the consequences of AI come in. And I'm saying that in a bad sense, because you can't choose to live in ignorance, and you can't choose to believe negative things about something new that comes up, and you can't make that work. You can't make that work, right? So the only person that they're endangering this way is themselves. With that said, you have a screen with another cool effect, and I will have to say here, not only do you have a bunch of cool effects that they've copied from Apple and other sites that they just took inspiration from, my major concern with it is somewhere along the lines your personality got missing. Either you don't have padding at all, or you have so much padding the whole page gets taken over, which is why it's so inconsistent, and which is why it's just not sitting right with my brain. And then you have all of these different elements come into one, which is definitely something I've seen in one of the fancy sites somewhere. Like, this is definitely not original, but they've actually managed to do it with a certain level of finesse that makes me think that they've got a shot. Like, this may not be original, but it does make you think it's good. I think in the whole world of trying to figure this effect out, though, even in the world of getting this to animate with all of its elements smoothly, you forgot to again think about color contrast, especially when you have an image with black in the background. You can't really exactly see, especially from the spectrum of accessibility and colorblindness, if this is SEFUL useful or EFUL, and it's just difficult for people to figure it out at that point. Again, testimonials come in, take up the space that they need to, and I think the reason this is just messing with me a little bit is because when you have testimonials, you either have more than one testimonials that link to the entire case study, but you've taken a single testimonial and you've made a whole case study inside of the landing page, which is just too much. Experience the Pohoda festival like never before. And again, I would want to see how this works on mobile, because they did change the color, but also so many elements on one single mobile screen is just very, very difficult to do. Have a world-changing idea, say it out loud. Kushal says definitely reduce some jobs. Absolutely, that's going to happen, and it's actually going to happen for the people who are so scared to take a look at a good thing, and they're so scared to understand that this is actually a good thing. They're so scared to try new things out. Like, I think it's the lack of courage that's going to reduce the jobs that it's going to reduce. Because believe it or not, when you have a group large enough, some people in the group are going to be more scared of change, and surprisingly, the more scared you are of new things and the more scared you are of change, the harder it is for you to physically be able to appreciate the superpowers that you've been given for free on the internet. Like, if you just choose to look at the bad sides, you're not looking at the good sides, and that's when you actually start to cost yourself. So I think the people who are conscious about what's happening are doing the right thing. Kushal also says, agreed, nowadays I'm writing 80 to 90% code using AI. I give it a high level design and get the low level code, but eventually we will be going higher and higher in abstractions, and this is going to definitely reduce jobs. Absolutely, that's true. And while I'm saying that, I can see the reptile, which is freaking me out. But my point still remains, you have to be giving new things a shot. And I'm not even talking about AI at this point. I'm talking about all things that come in that are younger than when you started your career, younger than when you started working with this entire framework. And new things come out and you have to give them a shot, and you have to understand that they may not be as malicious as you think. AI is a neural network. AI is made with mathematics and computer science. It's not going to eat you alive. And some people can't seem to understand that. So that's when the fear starts to come in, and fear is what eats everything up as a whole. Like, it's the stuff that's not supposed to be there. Kushal says, oh, the reptile, why don't you shoo it away? I don't think it wants to listen. I think the reptile has scared me enough times, and it's big enough, massive enough to know that it can just stay, and it can scare the crap out of me, and I won't be able to do anything. And I would much rather tell it to strangers on the internet than address the issue. This is me being scared. At least I'm not scared of AI though. That's one thing I have over some of the people watching. At least I'm not scared of the new technology that came in. I'm scared of the old, not so pet friendly, pet assuming weird animal that lives, which we're trying to figure out how to get him out. Like, the mosquito spray and the killers are not working. Like, the sprays are not working. It's becoming a big problem now. It's a really bad problem, you guys. It's really, really bad. Devil Ash says, reptile is also learning web dev. It is. Kushal says, when you say huge, how huge it is exactly? I will reveal. It is on really, really close to my head right now. It's really, really close, and it's why are you here? Get out, please. I don't think he understands English. I don't think he does, because English isn't my first language, and he could fall at any moment on my head, and I think you'll all get a nice reveal. Everyone will get a kick out of it. Everyone will get a kick out of it. He's at the top, and I'm so horrified right now. With that said, now you have a title, and now you have a bunch of buttons. We just got sidetracked over there. And then they take the common trend of taking text off footers and putting it at the bottom and kind of cutting it out, and they kind of keep it working. Finally, at the footer, they get the good sense to start using padding, and they get the sense to start cutting things out for style. For example, this font as well. So at the end they figure themselves out. They figure what they are as a brand, and by that time I do believe it's too late. So overall, I do think the site is a 5 out of 10, because there is a lot of effort, there is a lot of trying new things, but I am a little bit concerned with how it's going to pan out on the mobile device. So on the mobile, I don't have high hopes at all, but there is a 3D model, and it is finally working, although you have to work really, really hard to scroll things. Kushal says, I'm saying he only understands shoo. I don't think we say shoo here, so he might be used to much more brash words. Get out of here translated into our language. Devil Ash says, my mom is also laughing. If she could scare a reptile away, it would be useful. If she can't, then I can't help you, because he's moving on top of my head. Am I manifesting this? If you fall, I might be very, very... I'm just going to forget that he ever existed. And if he falls on my head, everyone watching is responsible, because you made me get to the stream. With that said, check out this image. This image was supposed to be complete. We talked about how this was supposed to be. I'm not even looking up now. This image was supposed to be complete, and it's not complete. I live in the most dangerous parts of the world. Just believe that. I live in the most dangerous parts of the world. That's exactly why I'm freaking out. I live in such dangerous parts of the world. An entire image is cut out. If it falls, you would have a real show. If you would. This is exactly why you should keep on watching. No matter how long the stream goes, there's always a minute risk that something really, really horrifying is going to happen for me on this stream. It might be funny to you, and I'm not going to speak of it now, because it's horrifying. You have an image that basically gets cut out. It was supposed to be very, very horizontal, very, very wide, and yet it isn't. So again, is the image stunted? Absolutely. Is this site not working? Absolutely. Am I so mad I would cut 2 points off from the review? Absolutely. This is, again, gets to a 3 out of 10 rating for me, because not only is this weird, it's not functional even. It's not functional anymore, and that's what's truly the big problem. And then you have something that's 3D work, and you have yourself trying to create some amount of consistency across patterns, but again, it's a little bit risky, it's a little bit scary. Kushal Thakur says hoping. I am also hoping, but we'll have to see, because I try to calm down, but everyone watching here knows he could fall on my head at any given point, and it would be the best stream this channel has ever had, and I'll casually discount streams with thousands of views for it. With that said, it doesn't work really well. Like, you get to see the fact that they're trying to get every single effect to work, but either things are not loading. Like, this Apple effect is just offset to the side for some reason. It was really, really hard to integrate this on desktops in the first place, but in the middle of mobiles, I think this side just freaks out. Like, it just not is working. Many of the screens are missing over here, and then you have all of these elements that get cut off. There was text here, but we weren't able to see it. So again, so many different elements just don't work. This becomes a 3 out of 10 site for me by the time they actually have something useful, something that looks really, really well on mobiles and desktops. You're really, really late, and you are in the footer finally. So I think that's where we're just going to stay with 3 out of 10 for this one. Very, very inconsistent, which is exactly what made me take points off. Kushal says hoping he falls. Do you guys hate me? Because some of you do. Because if you didn't hate me, you wouldn't wish or manifest. I'm not sure if this is 1 or this is 2, because what I'm hearing is messing with my perception of reality. With that said, let's go to the next site. I will keep you hoping that he falls, because I do want to know how good balance the fellow reptile has. With that says, Kushal says, can you switch to an iPhone 14 on something? The dimensions are a little low. I think that might be a good idea, because but again, the problem is I will switch to iPhone, because yes, there is curiosity, but again, the problem becomes, this is iPhone SE, but I think the problem does become people aren't changing their phones every single day. I think we only have iPhone 12 here, and all of the issues that were happening before are also happening. Check it out. This is weirdly offset right now, and it doesn't ever work completely, so the problems still remain. With that said, we're going to Lowe's Innovation Labs. I have high hopes with the names, but the number of elements they've tried to put in without enough white space or space at all is what's freaking me out very, very much. So they've tried to put in a title, they've tried to put in basic header elements, and they've tried to not have navigation elements over here, but they've tried to take the elements that are present in the middle of the screen, they've tried to take the descriptions, put it at the top, and they've tried to add these cards, and it's just really, really weird. And then you have a bunch of cards again. They're so over reliant on cards and so over reliant on 3D that you just have a site that's just very, very cramped together, even though you were trying to get it right. And they have 2 different logos, both very, very small, which is what's making me not understand what the goal was here. You get a 3D model, and it gets big, and it takes over the background, and it takes all of the space that it needs to take. And then at some point you realize there is a background image, and there is text, and the freakier part is this text isn't selectable, which means it was put in a wall, a real wall. Either it was a 3D wall, or it was painted into or pasted into an actual wall. They put a photo, low resolution photo, put it on, and I'm working with a comparatively small device. Like, this isn't even 4K. They put it into a small blurry photo, put it on their site as a full page overlay. Like, you would expect there to be text over here, but it's not, and it's bad for accessibility, because this text does not get ranked in any search engines anywhere, right? So that's just bad. Devil Ash says, yes, 3D websites are a little bit harder to make responsive. I don't think it's 3D. I think it's the fact that they were coercively trying to get different elements from different sites into one and make it work, and it just didn't match anything at all. With that said, this is the next site that we're working with. You have some text, you have some descriptions, there is a lot of there is a lot of text going on, and there isn't enough difference in terms of font size. I don't want to be nitpicky, but these are the things that make or break an experience. There is a difference in font sizes, and it's really small, and at the end of the day you end up with something that looks extremely weird as a card as well. So they were obsessed with cards, they tried to go with cards, but this isn't even a bento grid, for God's sake. Like, this is where things are messing with me. And you can scroll, but this scroller wasn't supposed to be present here. Like, no one looks into this one corner to be able to see the scroller. It's either at the bottom or at the left and right. So I think they tried to have everything present, but nothing works. And then you have labs index, and then you have socials, which should have been more, for God's sake. Like, LinkedIn and Instagram is like the bare minimum. And then you have a really weird looking footer with more cards. You do put text in a marquee tag, which is what makes it move, but at the end of the day, it's a misfit of a site, which is exactly why it's in the illegal site stream. It's a misfit of a site. You try to make something happen, there is a bunch of cards, there is a bunch of elements, 2 different logos for some reason, both sticky. No idea why this text was painted and pasted into a wall, and then they took an image which is actually blurry, and then they put it out on their full page site, and it's absolutely messed up. Designing Hub says hello, welcome back. We are reviewing 6 insane sites that probably should not exist. Devil Ash says, I'm actually talking about the previous website. I'm also talking about the previous website. It was harder to do, but they took elements from Apple's site, they took elements from other sites, they took not enough originality and enough copying from so many different places that it was just really hard to work with. So I can understand why it didn't work. Maybe it didn't work because the inspiration wasn't just from one place, it was from way too many places, and there wasn't padding where there needed to be padding, there wasn't spacing where there needed to be spacing. Yes, as I'm talking about this, I realize I remember way too much about web design, but it's kind of what I'm supposed to do. So 3D sites, harder to do. The only thing that's harder than 3D sites to do with Pagoda was they took things from many different places, and they weren't even getting all of the elements for responsiveness. Like, when you take elements from different sites that are technically responsive, you figure out how those sites make them responsive, and you figure out how to make it work. They just took super cool inspiration, integrated it into their heading page, into their landing page, and then they decided to make it kind of on their own from that point on, which is why they didn't worry about responsiveness. And this is why responsiveness seems a little bit freaky. Elements start getting cut off, these screens aren't visible, and spacing, and why is there spacing now? This is also very weird to me. Why was spacing not present in the first time, and why is it present here? Did we change something? I don't think we changed something. I think it just does whatever it wants to do, which is even worse. I want to take a point back on account of inconsistency. I just think it's really weird. 2 out of 10. Like, everyone on Pagoda is just reducing points at this point, because people keep going back to it because of the color, and something messed up keeps on happening. Devil says, gotcha, did the reptile fall on my head? Did you guys figure out what it is? If it happened, I was definitely lost in the world of web design, but I don't think it fell down. I think it's still up there. So why did you got me? I have no idea at this point. The last site that we're reviewing today is going to be zeter.co. It's very modern art themed. If you guys have seen yesterday's stream, you know my thoughts about modern art. But if you don't yet know, it's the fact that it's so new and it's so weird. It does freak me out a little bit. It messes with my perception of websites as a whole, and it's extremely weird. And I'm still worried what you got. Could you please just clarify what gotcha? Because if the reptile has fallen down and it's in the background somewhere, I am horrified to my core. With that said, I'll let you guys know what the reptile status it is at the end of the stream. There is a ton of white space, which is absolutely what you need. There is a ton of area where you can just work with things, and you have a lot of text, but you are never bold enough to make it big enough. Like, it's really small, and it looks really weird. And at the end of the day, you have a really hard time getting it to work. Kushal says, you missed my last message. Could you please send it again, because I don't think it reached us for some reason. No idea. Now you have all of these images and all of this text that's extremely small, and the only thing that you use is, this is like walking into a site blindfolded. My problem with Zeter is, you take a site and you decide to walk into it blindfolded. this image is just present, and the only thing that's supposed to guide you is these weird scroll bars that sometimes appear and sometimes don't appear. They're very, very inconsistent that way. And then you have a bunch of text that's just extremely small. It doesn't get as big as it needs to, and that's what's freaking me out. Again, when things do get boring, they do change the background color, so they have that good sense, but no font is big enough for it to even qualify as a very, very accessible site, even if some accessibility testers would let you go. I think Lighthouse would have a problem with it, and I do think WCAG doesn't fit. I do think it's just way too small for most people to see. Like, when you think about issues with eyesight, then I think you really start to consider, are we making these sites right? And that's the empathy we need to have when we're making all of these sites. Gotcha means I got you, that's it. Thank God. If you had got the weird reptile that lives here, which I'm trying to send him, you have to believe me, I've tried all sorts of sprays and chemicals, nothing works, and we've finished bottles on it, and it's not going anywhere, which is exactly why I live in constant states of fear, and I'm just praying to God he goes away somewhere. And then you have this text which gets even smaller. Like, just when you think things can't get smaller, they make their things even more smaller. This seems to be like a joke, because you have images, you have things going anywhere. I think the weird thing is, this seems to be more of a washing machine manual which just comes in built in, and it's just kept on top of the washing machine and it's forgotten, than it seems like a site. Because you try to go with modern art, and then there is immediate pressure to have it be original, have it work, and it doesn't work. Like, there's no consistency. 2 tabs stick, 3rd tab just goes away to nowhere. I'd have no idea what this site is doing, and I was really trying to understand it too. Let's just go back, because Zeter's original site was much easier to understand what happened. This is weird. Designing Up says the hero section doesn't tell me what website is about. Users will jump off the site. Absolutely. This is exactly what I've been trying to say. When you have text that's way too small, actually they're basically talking about connection limitless, something. They would have benefited so much if they had just put what they wanted to say on top of your screen, and not it's kind of jumped around the block so much, so it does mess with our whole head, because the text is too small and it's not even present there. So I think that's where main issues start to come up. And then you have this really weird bento grid which tries to make it work with modern art, but it's just really weird. And here's my problem with modern art: you stick with this font, no one sees a hint of serif fonts coming, and then boom, suddenly out of nowhere you have this really weird text box. Why did this font even come in? Who wanted this? Who asked for this? Whoever did knows nothing about consistency. Please fire them immediately. With that said, again, a bunch of text, a bunch of different sections, a bunch of really small things that you have to kind of squint to see. I have something really funny to show you guys. I don't go towards funny, but I have something funny to show you guys. Check this out. This says, Zeter acknowledge the traditional owners of land. We work and live. We pay our respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. The problem is, if you were really that careful about elders, past, present, and emerging, you would know elders need a little bit more accessibility when it comes to web design, which is exactly why you would make your fonts bigger. If you're so incredibly grateful to your elders, which is a great quality, don't get me wrong, you would have that show not just in text but also in the practicalities of what you do. Like, you're just talking about, we pay our who has ever seen a site that openly says we pay our respect to elders, past, present, and emerging? That's like me going to the comments of this video and typing out, I pay my respect to the reptile that lives in the studio and does not go away. Like, it's kind of like that. It's messed up. I don't actually pay respects in the same way they don't actually pay respects to their elders when it comes to action. The inconsistency, the font sizes, and the sheer plain hypocrisy of them paying respects to their elders is exactly what makes me say this site deserves a 2 out of 10, because as Designing Hub says, it doesn't convert any sales. You'd have no idea from start to finish what's happening. Your tags are small, your links are small, your logo is small. There is no clear line on talking about what you do. The only line you get is in the footer, and it talks about how you respect your elders, but your elders need accessibility, and you're not making your fonts or colors big enough, bold enough for them to see. I have to squint, and I'm not even an elder. What's going on? What's going on with this entire thing? Like, this is absolutely messed up. I have no idea. Koshal says, can you see my messages? I think I can see your messages now. Mayank says, hey, hello, we're reviewing awesome websites that are just blowing our minds and do not belong here. Designing Hub says if you're empathetic to your users, then you will design by their needs and not yours. Absolutely. And I think if you're empathetic, you don't need to come in and talk about, I respect my elders. You know what that would be like? That would be like liking someone a lot and then going ahead and saying, I hate you. It's I don't know how to explain it, but it's just twisted in its own way. And it's what you're doing is not matching what you're saying, which is what's confusing many people into getting into this weird twirly cycle, and it's not working with me. With that said, you guys, this has been an incredible stream. We have reviewed incredible sites. In fact, I want to see what this looks like on a mobile screen, because if I don't, I will regret it forever. Surprisingly, this has some good responsibility in terms of responsiveness, which is what makes this entire thing work for responsive sites. But you still don't know what's going on, which is what's freaking me out. This has been an incredible stream. Thank you so much for watching. I come here live every single day, 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time or 3:30 p.m. GMT, wherever you are in the world. We talk about web design, UI UX design, everything that's new, modern, and coming up. I hope you like this stream. I hope you like more that we do on this channel. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, because every single person on this platform is asking the people who are watching to do that. But more importantly, click the notification bell, because that's when you know I'm live streaming every single day, wherever I am. I will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Keep on designing and be aware that the reptile living in this room is actually not a friend to me. It's a very, very horrifying lizard who's been here for a really long amount of time and who could fall on my head whenever he wanted, and I'm hoping to God he doesn't on one of these streams. But here's the thing, if he didn't fall today, he might fall tomorrow, and I'm scared by it, but some of you might want to see it. So join me live tomorrow and maybe you'll see a reptile fall on my head. Until then, good night. Keep on designing. Keep